Hello, this is Jason Marshall with McGraw-Hill Education. We know many of you are off campus now and you're trying to figure out how to operate remotely. Your students are off campus as well, but you want to keep them connected and engaged to the science that you've been teaching all semester long. So I thought we'd create this video so that you can see the options available to you and how to send these resources to your students and how to get it back. So in this tutorial, we're going to talk about how to find resources in the Inspire Science program for grades K through 8, how to send them to your students, and then what do they see on their end. So in the course of this video, I'm going to go on the student side. I have two windows open, mine as the teacher, Jason Marshall, and I also have a Firefox window open right here where I'm going to go in as a student, Jim Parsons. And we're going to see what it looks like on the student side. It looks pretty similar to the teacher side, but the experience is very different once you get in. So I'm on the teacher side, so let's start here. I have grade 7 and grade 4 here. We'll take a look at both, but know that the functionality, grades K through 8 with McGraw-Hill's Inspire Science is pretty much identical, the same. So as you're watching this, me go through as a 4th grade teacher, it works the same on the 7th grade side. You'll just have different resources available to you there. I'll start on the 4th grade side with my classroom called Garden City Grade 4, and I'm entering my dashboard screen as a teacher. Now the first thing you might want to know when finding resources to send to your students is where are those resources located. So I have resources up here at the right that I can click, search for resources, and when I do, it'll take me to this course view. Now I could have just gone to the course view. It would take me to the same location. So the first time I clicked search for resources up here, but I could also just go to course view and it'll take me to the same location. And once in course view, I have two places that I could use to find resources. I've got a resource button over here to the right, and then I have the course view, which is highlighted to the left. If I start with resources, let's see how I can find resources this way. So one of the ways I could find resources is by keyword search. Maybe I want to find resources related to matter. I click on matter, and those resources associated with that word matter will appear. And I can decide if this is something that I want to use. Maybe I want to use this cross-cutting concepts graphic organizer on energy and matter. And if that's something that I want to use, I can download it here to my desktop. I could print it out. If I download it, that's a resource that I could email to my students if that's the way I want to communicate with them and send them resources. But I don't have to email in the Inspire Science program. There's other ways of sending resources to your students. We'll talk about those in just a moment. So one of the ways I could find is by keyword search. Another way I could find resources in Inspire Science is by filtering down into the module that I happen to be in. And let's say I'm in module Energy and Motion, which is in Unit 1. Click on that and it'll filter down to those resources. But I want to filter down even more. How about going into the lesson? How about Forces and Motion, Lesson 1? Now everything related to forces and motion will be available to me. And it looks like I've got 36 results. And I could choose the resource that I want to use with my students. I can go in and investigate. I can take a look at it. I can go to page 2, which I see here, and see the resource that I want to send to my students. Maybe it's this investigator article. Let's click on it. I believe it's a printable PDF. If that's something that I want to send to them via email, I could just download it right here. Call this investigator article, save it to my desktop. Now that's something I could send to them in an email if I wanted to. But I shared with you a few moments ago that that's not how you have to send resources in Inspire Science. I can also click on this button right up here and click the Assign button. Now, if you have students rostered in this class, so let me go to my roster here. It looks like I do. You'll have that assignment option as an option to you. So I have this group of students here, famous Houstonians, since I live in Houston, and Jim Parsons happens to be one of my students. So when I go to course view, I'll have the option to assign that resource to my students. So let me go back to that same resource, which I believe was in Elaborate here. Let's take a look at it. There they go, the investigator articles. I can assign this resource and send that to my students. So investigator articles, I want to put some instructions. Read this article, do the activity at the end, send in your work. I decide when I want it to be due for my students, and I'll have this one due on Friday. And do I want them to submit files or text to complete this assignment? Sure, I'll say yes, but I don't have to. I could choose specific students to be a part of this. Okay, so here, right now I have all students, but I could choose specific students. If I just wanted to send it to Jim, I could send it to Jim, but I'm going to choose all students for this. I'm going to make it worth 10 points. And if I have other classes, let's say a period 1, 2, 3, and 4, that I want to send them to also, I'd click on those compatible classes. Once I have this assignment the way I'd like it, I click Assign. And that has been sent to students. And notice it will have this red bar here at the bottom, telling me that I have an assignment that has been sent to students and when it is due. Once I send that to students, it will show up in another location as well. It'll show up in my assignment section, which will list all assignments that I've sent to students. It will also show up in my calendar. There it is in my assignment section. And let's take a look at the calendar as well. If I click on the calendar, here will be my assignment that I've sent to students. Now, when students log in, they have a calendar as well, and they have an assignment section as well. So it will be in their side as well. They'll know it's called the to-do side in grades K through 5. It's called assignments in grades 6 through 8. But they'll have a location where they know all of their assigned work is ready for them and where they can find it and see when it is due. Okay, so how did I do that again? All I did was go to the resource that I wanted to send, find it. Maybe it is, if I scroll down to the library, maybe it's this personal tutor. Click Assign, and then fill out these options. Decide when you want to do. How about this on the 18th? Give some instructions. Watch and share your thoughts with me. And then I make this worth 10 points, and I click Assign. Now that's been sent to my students. Now, as you know, the red bar will appear here. As you also know, it will show up in assignments, and it will show up in my calendar as well. Okay, so maybe I want to send a video. Maybe I want to send a personal tutor. Maybe I want to send an investigator article, a leveled reader. Anything that I want to send to my students, I can assign in this way. And if it's a printable resource, maybe I just want to choose to send it email. It's up to me, but know that you don't have to use student emails in the Inspire Science platform. You could send them to the students that way. Now, if I go back to the course view, know how these resources are organized. The resource is the filtering mechanism by keyword, then module or lesson, or either one, keyword or module or lesson. But if I go to the course view, what it does is it sets up digital file folders for me. So here, if I click on this icon here on the left, I could choose which specific module that I want to enter into. Let's say it's Module 2, Energy Transfer. I could open up that module, and let's say I want to go to Lesson 1. And once I enter Lesson 1, the 5E lesson model will be presented to me. So they're the same resources as I would find in the resources section. They're just organized for nice handy little digital file folders. My Science Page Keeley Probe is here. My lesson planning resources for me, the teacher, is here. And as I scroll down, resources to engage, have students explore, elaborate in the lesson, all are here where I'd like for them to be. Now, one of the resources I might suggest you use, because when students are off campus, there's not a lot of hands-on options available to them, is you might choose an inquiry rewind video. So this video is a video that shows real students doing activities and labs, the same lab that you might have planned to do in class, but now students are doing it. And it takes them through step-by-step doing the lab. Now, it's likely to be the next best thing to them doing it in class. It shows them the resources that they might need for this. They're typically simple resources. It gives them step-by-step instructions on how to execute the lab. Maybe that's what you want students to do. Have them still thinking about science processes and thinking in terms of labs and hands-on activities. And if I want to send that inquiry rewind to my students, just click assign, just like I did the other two resources. Click assign, decide when I want it to be due, give it some instructions, and then click that assign button down at the bottom. Okay. What else can I send to my students in this time where they are working remotely? Well, maybe I want to send them a quiz or a test or a lesson check. I can do that through assessments. So if I click on assessments, here I have pre-made tests that are organized for me by module. So let's say we happen to be in energy transfer. I can click on energy transfer, and I have a module pre-test, lesson checks, and a module post-test that I could send to my students. If I go to this lesson check on types of energy, here are the types of questions available to me. I can put my cursor on it, and I could read the whole section there if that's what I want to do. I can click on the question itself and take a look at it. I can also choose to preview this. So if I click preview, it will walk me through step-by-step, question through question, to see what questions are on the student test and of what type they are. Okay, this is a closed question. Let's continue here. I have students generating an answer. So let's say this is a test I want to send to my students. I have a couple options for sending it to them. So one of the options I can do is to print it out and use it as an attachment. So if I go to energy transfer, this lesson check, notice that I have these three dots over here to the right. We call that the kebab menu in Inspire Science. And when I click on the kebab menu, notice that I can print this out. If I print it out, I have some choices to make: font, style, size, show right on lines. I have some choices as a teacher. Once it's the way I want it, I click Generate PDF. And it will download for me in my download section. Now it's still in progress. It'll take a few seconds, and once it's ready, it'll tell you it's ready. And I could print that out there and use it as an attachment or send it to students in a traditional way. But that same test, like every other resource in Inspire Science, can be sent to them digitally by just clicking on this assign button right here. And a similar menu will appear where I choose when I want it to be due. How about Friday for this one as well? Do I want all of my students to get this test, or just some? I'll have all of my students get this test. Do I want to share it with Google Classroom or add other extensions? I can do that as well. Do I want the scores to be visible to my students, or do I want them just to see or just complete it without having seen their score? I can choose exactly what I want them to have access to. May view after assessment is closed, may view on a specific date. I've got all these choices here. May view their score, and then I click assign, and that will be sent to my students. And it'll show up in my assignment. So now I've created 3 assignments. I've created an investigator, high interest magazine style article. I sent that to my students. I sent them a lesson check, little quiz on types of energy. I've also sent them a personal tutor as well. So all of these will be sent to my students and be available to them on their side. So what does it look like on their side? Well, let's take a look. I'm going to go in as a student now, and I'm going to close this window, or not close it. I'm just going to toggle over to my Firefox window. And here I am in Jim Parsons' page. Now, Jim Parsons is unlikely to be a 7th grader and a 4th grader at the same time. Your students will only have 1 grade here. Since I'm kind of demoing both, I have 2 at my student account. So kind of ignore one of these. Let's go right into grade 4. If I go into grade 4 Garden City for Jim, here's my the elementary page and what it looks like. I have a home section, I have to do, and I have lessons. And my things that teachers have sent to me will show up in my to-do section. I click here and I have my personal tutor, my investigator article, and my lesson check. I can click on this lesson check and take that test that my teacher sent to me. And let's do a few questions real fast. I'll click assign, start assignment, and I will just go through these very randomly. I'm likely to get a bunch of these wrong, but I just want to share with you how it looks on the student side. I'm going to save and continue. I'm just going to do a couple more here. How about question B here? Save and continue. Short answer question. Save and continue. how about I end up with 7, and I'll click submit. Okay, so I've sent that test in. It looks like it's telling me, hey, you haven't answered all of these questions. Are you sure you want to submit? I'll say yes, just for the purposes of this demonstration. I'll view my scores, waiting for teacher review. I've got some things on the teacher side that I have to grade. So that's been sent. And notice that it has left the to-do section, and now it will show up in past work, something that I've already turned in. If I click to do again, I have this personal tutor waiting for me. I have this investigator article. Let's just take a look at this to remind what that looks like. Here I have my assignment, my instructions. I can read this as a student, and I can follow any instructions my teacher had about reading this. So this is my high interest magazine style article, and it's telling me to take a look at this assignment and do this assignment at the end. Every one of our investigative articles will begin with that sort of an assignment. If I'm asked as a student to include an attachment for my review, I can just enter that attachment or add that attachment right here. And then once it's ready, I can click submit, and it will be sent to my teacher for a grade. Okay. Now on the student side, on the 7th grade side, it looks a little bit different. So let me share what it looks like on the 7th grade side. The student experience is just a little bit different than it is on the teacher side. So if I go to Jim Parsons' home here and click on this little red button here, it'll take me back to that screen. And if I click on 7th grade, now the 7th grade experience looks a little bit more similar to the teacher experience. But I do have assignments here, and I do have grades. And if I click on assignments, that's where my assignments will be located. They'll be right here in my to-do section. And then once I've completed them, it'll show up in past work, just like it did on the 4th grade side. The 4th grade side, we try to make a little bit more appropriately looking for our students' grades K through 5. That's why it looks a little bit different. So I'm going to go to my course view. In the course view as a student, like the teacher, I have access to all of my resources. So if on the student side, I want to go into a specific lesson, I can. And any student resource available to me will be found in these file folders. So I can find my probes, I can find my engagement phenomena, lesson phenomena, any printable resource that's made for students will be found here as well. On the student side, I also have access to the Reading Essentials. Reading Essentials is a great tool for teachers and students in this time where you're working remotely. So it's a resource that is the same as the text, except it's written below grade level. So here I have properties of matter, larger font size, more white space. There's opportunities for response and annotation in the margins, and this is something that can also be downloaded and printed at home by students anytime, anywhere. Now at the middle school level, another fantastic resource to be used when students are operating remotely is LearnSmart. So they have access to LearnSmart here, and this is something that can be assigned on the teacher side. And once in LearnSmart, they could read and constantly be assessed. So as a student, I can read this section. I can go to different parts of the content, flip the pages. What I don't know yet is highlighted in yellow. Once I've demonstrated mastery, it will turn green. And all along the way, I can click practice and be assessed on this content continuously. If I need a little bit of support with reading, I can go back to my reading section here. It is this back and forth between reading and constantly being assessed that creates this LearnSmart experience. And that's something that can also be sent to students online. I'm going to go back as a teacher again. I'm going to go back into my teacher account and go into my programs. And we started out on the 4th grade side, showing you the teacher view. Let me just briefly go on the 7th grade side. If I'm a 7th grade teacher, it looks just like I did on the 4th grade side, except I have a few different resources available to me. Of course, I have that Reading Essentials that we saw. I still have a course view. And if I go in here, I can navigate from program resources to the module level to the lesson level, just like before. But if I go to the module level, or let's say the lesson level, I'm going to find that Reading Essentials. I'm also going to find that Learn Smart available to me here. So if I go to Learning and Planning Resources and scroll down a little bit, and let's say go into this lesson library, I've got my PhET simulations. I've got the resources that were designed for middle school students available to me. And just like on the 7th grade side, on the elementary side, if I find what I'm looking for, like this Reading Essentials, I just click Assign, and it is assigned the exact same way. Read this, annotate, and send me a copy. I make this worth 10 points. I assign it to my students down here, and now that's waiting for them on the student side. Now this has been a short video on how to find resources, how to send resources to your students, and what that experience looks like on the student side. Now hopefully we won't be working remotely for all that long, but I just wanted to make you equipped with the tools and the knowledge to be able to do this. If you have any other questions, do not hesitate to reach out to your McGraw-Hill sales representative.